Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Frequently Missed Questions Explained from Chapter 5. We're going to dive right in. So, when thinking about other people, which of the following will we see most central to their self concept? So, the really important part to think about when you're thinking about self concept is what another person can change and still be themselves. So when we're looking at these other multiple choice options here, we've got physical attributes, preferences, and attitudes. If I change my physical attributes, so say I get a nose job or cut my hair or get glasses or something like that, that would change my physical attributes, I'm still essentially myself. So that's how I remember that one. And preferences and attitudes, as long as they are sort of surface level preferences and attitudes that don't influence your morals, then those also you can change and still really be yourself. So say, for example, I grew up not liking avocados, and then all of a sudden I discover that avocados are actually wonderful, which they are, by the way, and I change that about myself. That really doesn't change who I am. So if you're thinking about self-concept, always remember that morals and beliefs and those types of structures are the most important to self-concept. Now, this question might have been confusing if you're looking at it from sort of a developmental aspect. The book does mention that for children, their physical attributes are something that they really pay attention to when they're younger, and then they develop into having morals later on. So that could have been confusing for that reason, but just remember that morals are the be-all end-all of self-concept. All right, so the second question is also a little bit confusing, and actually, when I graded this section for Revel points, I actually removed this question from the grading system because although you can sort of eliminate answers to sort of figure it out, it wasn't really explicitly stated in the book. So I'll go through why we can eliminate them. So which of the following is true? We'll start down here with this bottom answer. People generally know why they feel the way they do. This is 100% untrue. People really don't know much about why they feel the way they do at all, which when you start to think about it is a little bit crazy, but that's what's going on there. People don't know why they feel the way they do, and sometimes they actually make up reasons why they're feeling the way they do, and that can be seen in a lot of research. When deciding whether to break up with a romantic partner, it's a good idea to make the list of all the pros and cons of the relationship. This was explained in depth in a reference to 30 Rock, with Liz Lemon trying to break up with her boyfriend. And if this part is confusing to you, go ahead and go back and read that section again, because it makes it pretty clear that we don't want to really make a list of pros and cons about the relationship. That doesn't help us decide any better. And actually, there is some research that wasn't mentioned specifically in the text that shows that it's actually harmful to do that if you're making a major decision to make a list of pros and cons. Reason being that when you are in a good mood about your relationship, you see all the pros. And then when you're in a bad mood about your relationship, you see all the cons. So it doesn't really help you to make a list of pros and cons because your current mood is going to determine what you remember and how you feel about the relationship overall. So it's not really that helpful. The second answer here, people who analyze the reasons for their feelings generally have a clearer idea of how they feel. That's not necessarily true. People who analyze the reasons for their feelings, they don't often have a clear idea of how they feel. They will sometimes make up causal attributions that they're saying, well, I did this because I felt this way. That doesn't necessarily make them more accurate. It just makes them sort of have a reason. And then the correct answer was this one, the one with the star there. It can be dangerous to think too much about the reasons why we feel the way we do in a romantic partner. And I think the reason that the text authors went with this answer is because when you think about why you're feeling the way you do about a romantic partner, oftentimes the reason that you feel that way about them isn't because they are a good and wonderful person. It could be something as simple as you went to a scary movie with them and now you're misattributing the arousal that you felt looking at the scary movie to them. So it could be dangerous to think too much about why we actually like the person that we like. And I think that they're kind of going from that angle. But again, I did not grade this one when I graded Chapter 5 for Rebel activities. Okay, next question. Let's suppose that your friend Megan says, if I get less than 8 hours of sleep, I'm in a terrible mood the next day. So based on research in social psychology, what is the best conclusion about her statement? So a lot of us got it right. Her statement is probably based on a causal theory that may or may not be true. We know that it is not this second answer here. She's probably right because people generally know why they feel the way they do. People do not generally know why they feel the way they do, but we don't know. She's making something up here, but she could be right, which is the important part to remember about this idea. And then this third answer here, she's probably wrong because people rarely know why they feel the way they do. It's not totally accurate to do that one. She can't be probably wrong on this one. She's had a lot of experience that says, like if I get less sleep, I'm likely to be cranky or something like that. She has experience doing this. Her bad mood that day may be caused by something else, but she's using some good information here about base rates and stuff like that we learned about in chapter 2 to make a conclusion about why she's feeling the way that she does. So that's kind of what's going on there. And nobody chose the last answer, so I won't cover that one. Which of the following statements best illustrates self-perception theory? Self-perception theory is when you're talking about you don't really know what's going on until you observe what you've already done. So that top answer is the correct one. And this comes down to if you are feeling uncertain about a belief and then you sort of see what you do. So I often do this one when I'm ordering at restaurants. So this is a great way to think about this one. Sometimes I will be choosing between two menu items and I don't really know which one I'm going to go with. I'm feeling very uncertain about it. And then right when the waitress gets there to take my order, that's when I decide. And then afterwards I'm like, well, of course I made this, great decision. Because that's truly what I wanted. And it was just the pressure of the situation where I chose it. Well, what's actually going on there is I didn't know what I felt about the choices. And then I saw what I did. I saw that I chose one. And then I justified to myself that I liked that one. The second answer here is I might not know why, but I know what I like. That one is correct in other situations in social ecology. That is an idea that comes up a lot, but it actually doesn't have anything to do with self-perception theory. So that's why that one's incorrect. The third answer there, I like classical music because my wife is always playing it. The important part to pick out about that option is because the wife is doing it. The wife is doing the behavior, but I am not doing the behavior. And that last answer there, I get a warm feeling inside when I listen to my favorite songs. That may be accurate, but it doesn't really have anything to do with self-perception theory. They're not questioning what their favorite song is, and they're not really questioning why they're feeling the way they're feeling. So that makes this top answer here with the 61% the correct one. This is one of my favorite misattribution of arousal. This is one of my favorite topics. Under which of the following conditions is Khalid most likely to feel a romantic attraction toward Heather? So I'm going to spend time going over these first two options here, and I'm totally going to ignore the last two because nobody chose them. So my choice is between our top two options here. So Khalid and Heather get into a serious car accident and both are terrified. And then Heather gives Khalid a hug and tells him that she really likes him. And then the difference between that one and the second one is they go for a long run together. She waits for a couple of hours to be sure that they are rested, and then same thing, gives him a hug and tells him that she really likes him. So the difference here is when we're talking about misattribution of arousal, the person has to be doing the arousal at the time. So, I say arousal a lot when I'm talking about romantic attraction. That doesn't necessarily mean sexual arousal. This just means physiological arousal. So if you think about like what you feel like when you've just gone for a long run, usually heart beating faster, hands are sweating, things like that. Well, we have the same physiological experiences when we are experiencing attraction. So we sometimes misattribute that to the romantic relationship rather than what it's actually being caused by. So how I chose the correct answer here is this defining line here. Heather waits for a couple of hours until she is sure that they are rested. So here they're not experiencing any physiological arousal at all. So it wouldn't make sense that they were transferring that physiological arousal to the relationship. So it's really important that this happens while this is going on. You can also have a thought about why you're experiencing the arousal while it's occurring, but and then remember that later. That makes sense. But the important part is that to connect those two, it has to be at the same time. My best advice for all this is if you want somebody to be attracted to you, go ahead and take them to a scary movie or something that's going to be physiologically arousing in order to make them like you more. So little like life hacks, I guess, from social psych. All right, our next question is about Mariana. She's a sophomore in high school who's trying out for a varsity softball team. In order to get an accurate assessment of her softball abilities, she should compare her abilities to, and the correct answer here is a sophomore who has about the same amount of experience playing softball as Mariana has. And then that second answer here with the 34%, a sophomore who has less experience playing softball than Mariana has, and then we've also got a senior who was on the who's the best player on the team last year. So how I'm choosing this first option here, the correct answer is that top answer. In order to get an accurate assessment of her softball abilities. So if I was trying to make an accurate assessment about myself, I would want to compare myself to someone who is about the same as me. And actually these two other options here are not about the same as Mariana. So we can eliminate the ones that have really substantial differences from her. This can be kind of confusing because if you think about people's real life behavior, it sort of depends on what they're thinking, what they're trying to get out of this comparison. And this question is related to upward and downward social comparison. So it's most important in order to get an accurate assessment to be making on the same level comparisons. But if I wanted to feel better about myself, I could do a downward comparison. So that would be somebody that has less experience playing than Mariana has. Or if I wanted to do an upward social comparison, I could do a senior who is the best player on the team last year. So you've got upward, downward, and then accurate is, I guess, the way that I would remember that. Okay, our next question here is talking about Ben, and Ben is worried that he will do poorly on his social psychology test. Which of the following is best example of behavioral self-handicapping? So in this one, this is the correct answer here. Instead of studying the night before, he stays up late watching movies on his computer, and right before the test, he tells his friends that he saw some great movies instead of studying. So behavioral self-handicapping is the one that we're looking for here. And we can tell that this is the correct answer because he's actually changing his behavior instead of just reporting to his friends differently. We'll talk about that in just a second. So instead of studying the night before, he stays up late watching movies. That's changing behavior. And then in order to self-handicap. And then the distinction here is he spends a couple of extra hours studying. So why we do self-handicapping is that just in case we fail, just in case something goes wrong, we can protect our self-esteem. So behavioral self-handicapping is this one. Reported self-handicapping is this one. He spends a couple of extra hours studying, so he's not changing his behavior in order to do poorly on this test. But right before the test, he tells his friends that he isn't feeling very well. So he's already reported, so just in case he messes up on this test, he's already reported to his friends that, he's not feeling his best. He may not do well on this. So every time we think about self-handicapping, we always think about it as a self-protecting strategy. Just in case something goes wrong, I can still be a good person, still think of myself as a good person. Okay, so if you enjoyed this chapter, please consider joining my lab as a research assistant. We do study self-control, uncertainty, belief in free will, other social psych topics. Those are ones that I get really pumped about. And basically, if you'd like to go to grad school in any field or just want some on-the-job experience before you head into real life, the research really improves your chance of admission, or you can get research experience that way to put on your CV. You're also eligible for a letter of rec, so if that's important to you, that could be something that you do. To apply, go ahead and go to that link that's on the bottom of the page, and there is also an interview and application process that everyone goes through. But I would love to have students apply, so go ahead and do that if that's an option for you. And I'll see you next time.